Sometimes when I look at my photographs that are published in the magazine, I'll say, geez, I'd like to go there. And then I think, hey, wait a minute, I shot that picture. But you know, usually you're working so darn hard, you don't really appreciate the beauty of the place. It's hard to calculate how many pictures I've had in National Geographic, but I think I've figured at least 2,000. My trips to China were often a little bit like surviving a plane crash, I felt, when I got back. But I wouldn't trade them for anything. They were marvelous experiences because they hadn't seen foreigners in 50 years. In traveling in China, the buses would break down periodically. And I learned what a marvelous opportunity this was, because we'd be on the highway in the middle of nowhere, and I would just say, well, I'm going to just keep walking straight ahead, and you pick me up when the truck is fixed. And I walked into some villages where people were just absolutely amazed, because here I was, this foreigner walking into this village. And I made some very nice pictures that I could never have made otherwise. A lot of people thought that when we worked on a story for the Geographic that we were given a script to work with. But in actual fact, you were just given a subject like time. I actually, as a photographic pun, I decided to photograph killing time. And I asked Cartier to give me some counterfeit watches that I shot bullets through. There was one picture where the bullet was touching the back of the watch, and there was kind of a flash that was actually the compression of air molecules hitting the back of the watch. I wanted to photograph a hand holding a cesium atom from an atomic clock. I did that with a rubber glove. I photographed a hand holding about a $50,000 watch, and I wanted a surgeon holding a human heart. And so I went to Dr. Bailey at Loma Linda in California and explained what I was doing. And he agreed for the first time to let somebody photograph one of his transplants. So I just walked in the back door and I said, where's the scrub room? And I went up and I changed and went into the surgical ward, and he was just finishing up the removal of the heart, and we put it in a little Tupperware container and into a nice chest, and then we flew straight back to Loma Linda and got there about dawn, and they put this heart in this little 2-week-old baby. And a few years ago, I was invited to her 10th birthday party, and I photographed her skiing at Lake Tahoe, and it was such a delight. Probably the most difficult picture I ever worked on for the Geographic was the cover for our 100th anniversary issue. Bill Garrett, the editor, wanted to illustrate our fragile planet, Can We Save It? The idea was to get a handmade Steuben crystal ball and actually have it exploding, and to reproduce it as a hologram, a 2-part hologram, so that when you looked at it from one angle, you saw the entire globe, and when you tipped it, you saw it cracking apart. And so I learned that the best way to photograph glass is to shoot it with absolutely the lowest velocity bullet that you can get by with, so you're just cracking it. The sequence of events would actually start with locking on to the pulsed laser. And at a certain point in the firing stream, the solenoid released the globe fell in the air, the gun, which was mounted in a special cradle, was electronically fired, struck the globe, it continued to fall, the shutter opened up, let one flash into the room, and it recorded the holographic image, and then it fell into a little basket where I could collect it and save it to re-glue it back together again for another attempt. If you were to look very carefully at the image that was published on the cover of National Geographic, you can actually locate the pellet because it's ricocheted inside the globe. Another complex project I worked on was an illustration for a story on aviation safety. I got it into my head that I might try to mount some cameras on the tail of a jumbo jet, and Lockheed worked really well with me. So I told them I wanted it at a certain point in the tail at a particular junction, and I mounted 2 cameras there, and I had one mounted horizontal, one mounted at an angle, so that when we did a turn in flight, that camera basically was looking at a horizontal horizon. And I mounted the cameras. I'm up on the top of the tail in this cherry picker, radioing the pilot, try left camera. He clicks left camera and it goes click, and right camera goes click, 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 click. And I thought, oh my God, there was some kind of electrical interference, because we had not tested them grounded together. We tested them separate always. So we had some engineer sit in the tail of the plane on a milk carton with these left tripper and a right tripper. I sat in the cockpit and I was telling him left camera, left, right. And the picture that we published, 3 pages, was a picture that's about a 30-second time exposure showing the plane just as touchdown at Palmdale. And the plane has approached the runway lights are there, they're getting bigger, and then the plane touches down and the nose derotates and the lights go up in the air. So we've got this incredible array of lights with the plane as sharp as can be. The Voyager photograph was actually taken in Virginia. And it was selected by Carl Sagan to go along in the Voyager spacecraft in hopes that someday, long after this planet is gone, some extraterrestrial beings will find this little satellite and look at it and say, ah, that's what it looks like down there on Earth. It's an image that looks kind of like the creation of life almost. My last 5 stories for National Geographic were here in the Southwest, and I got to like the area and been coming back ever since. Here in the Southwest, you've got some incredibly marvelous skies. And we're up at 7,000 feet here, for example, and we've got this deep blue sky you won't find back in Arlington, Virginia. I like the culture out here. I like the people. And I especially like discovering places that people kind of missed. Sometimes I worry about what kind of impact I'm going to make. Many times I've photographed an area and I really don't want to say where they are. I'd like to say, you find it yourself, because you know that 50 million people are going to see that picture, so it can't help but impact an area. And also I'm concerned about the people I photograph and how it impacts their lives. Sometimes I'll go back and re-meet the people, and one of my favorite persons was John Caldwell, whom I photographed for a book on American mountain people. And I first met John in Harlan County, Kentucky, and his wife Lottie, and they practically adopted me. They're just marvelous people. John died a few years ago, and so I went to the funeral, and the preacher said John was the workingest man on Greasy Creek. And one of the proudest moments in his life was when he was photographed for National Geographic.